Okay, so I'm back with another Dungeons and Dragons video. Today I will be talking about the concept of hard and soft barriers in Dungeons and Dragons, and also a closer look at the spell Arcane Lock. So the concept of hard and soft barriers is something that's mainly important in video games and video game design. So you can loosely divide barriers or obstacles in games into ones which are hard, in which you can either not pass them or only pass them with a certain trigger, and soft barriers which can be passed in any number of ways, or a set number of ways. So example of a hard barrier would be say the colored locks in the video game Doom. If you want to get through a red door, you need the red key, and you're not going to get anywhere without doing that. Or another example could be a boss in Elden Ring that you'd need to defeat in order to actually get further into the game. Say in the first castle, you need to defeat Morgott to actually get any further in there. And examples of soft barriers would be, say, if you had a door in a wall, you could find the key for that door. That'd be the most obvious answer, but there could also be provision to lockpick the door. You could climb over the wall. You could go under the wall via a sewer. You could jump the wall. You could convince someone to let you in. And games referred to as immersive sims tend to have more of the soft barriers than hard barriers, and people like these games because of how you can be creative about how you solve problems, and the more answers to the different problems and the more permissive it is, the better it is. The more you have to negotiate hard barriers, the less immersive it is. So a typical example of criticism of hard barriers is in the game Resident Evil, where you are exploring a mansion with your heavily armed super cop, and you're constantly having to find various keys and pass cards to get into doors, but you're also carrying around a grenade launcher or a shotgun, which you could conceivably blow the hinges off the door with. So why am I looking for keys when I could do that? And the game doesn't let you do that. You have to complete the puzzle one particular way, and that irks people a little bit. So bringing the conversation back to Dungeons and Dragons, this map before you is a map I used recently for an adventure. It is a mansion and grounds. It is somewhat inspired by Resident Evil, that being a favourite game of mine. I do like exploring ornate houses. So the party were teleported here by a very powerful creature, and were told that they couldn't leave for 3 days. They'd been trapped in a sort of a sub-realm, a demi-plane, and they just have to sit back and enjoy the comforts of the house for those 3 days, upon which they will be let free. But they're also told that during this time, the agents of this villain are doing his bidding out in the real world, So by the time they'll be set free, something bad will have happened. So they have to try and get out of here sooner rather than later. And to do that, they need to defeat the villain. Now, the villain is not at the end of a winding dungeon. He is sat in his sitting room at the front of the house. He is not afraid of the party. He gives them free reign of the house. They've got their own guest rooms, and they're told they're allowed to take anything from the kitchen, and the cook will cook for them. And as long as they stay to the safe areas of the house, they won't be attacked. In that, the party could just straight up attack the villain. They know where he is, but they are also told that this would be a bad idea because he's quite powerful. They need to discover his weaknesses and the way to actually defeat him. There's an NPC that clues them in on this, so they have to surreptitiously search the house and poke their noses in all the nooks and crannies and find various things to help them fight the villain. So this is another example of a small open world map, similar to the Golgari Undercity map that I talked about in another video. I might go over the entire map if people would want me to do that in another video. If that's something you'd like, please comment below. But for now, I'm just talking about a few elements of this map. So, as a small open world, the party are free to go around all of it in any order they want. It doesn't matter greatly which order they do things in, as long as they end up doing them. And there are numerous areas that are restricted to them, but restricted only in that they have to find some way to actually get inside them. So if you see various places on this map, I have on the GM layer, I have marked various doors with emblems. These represent the keys they need to unlock those doors and gain access. Fans of the graphic novel series and Netflix series Lock and Key will recognise where I have completely stolen the glyphs for these keys from. But yes, each of these glyphs corresponds to a different key, which is found in a different place in the house. Some of the keys have got several copies, so they could find more than one, or just find one of several. And that's the easiest way to gain access to these various places. Not every place is locked with one of these key things. There's a lot of places like this little chapel that the doors are wide open. They can go in them if they like. But yeah, a lot of the important places are locked with these keys. Now these doors are locked with the Arcane Lock spell, and this is a spell that it locks the door and makes it impassable until it is broken or the spell is dispelled or suppressed. And if you cast Knock on the object, it suppresses the Arcane Lock for 10 minutes. And any attempts to break or force open the door mean the DC to do so is increased by 10. So it makes it much harder to get inside, but not impossible. I know usually the way to get past Arcane Lock is a password that you set, but I don't see it being much of a break to say that it's a key that does it, or maybe it's a key that says the password when it's put inside the lock. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. So this is an example of a soft barrier, in that There is a main way of doing it by finding the key, but there are several other ways of getting past it. That well, two of them are actually mentioned in the body of the spell itself. You've got the knock spell, which is just a level 2 spell that can open any door but makes a big noise. And the other is dispelling it. If you've got the dispel magic spell, which is a level 3 spell. So either of those would be able to do it. For the purposes of dispel magic, I set the difficulty dispel the spell as if it was cast with like a level 9 spell, so it'd be sort of DC 19 to open it. So they don't just open it just with the dispel magic spell. Since Arcane Lock is second level, if it was cast at second level, a level 3 dispel magic would just open it, but I determined that it was actually upcast. So as well as there being those methods of getting through it, there are other ways of getting through the doors, such as just breaking the doors down or convincing someone to open the door for you. If you look at the this is the upper floor, the next floor up, the first floor. Say if you were trying to get into this master bedroom here, where I'm sure there are lots of treasure and clues, you could come from the guest bedroom where they're sleeping, make your way through this window and go along the balcony, all along here, all along there, leap over there and like smash the window there or teleport through, and then you're in and you don't need the key. So there's, depending on what the party decide to do, there's a lot of creative ways they could come up with to get in, and I think they'll appreciate this quite a bit. There's sort of the strength of soft barriers is that it encourages player creativity, so that they will see that there's a problem and try and solve it their way. And the more you have to resort to hard barriers, the more you'll end up with situations where you are disappointing your players, or coming into conflict with your players, or punishing them for creativity, or not rewarding them for creativity. So you could imagine a situation where the last boss of this dungeon was behind a big stone door with a lock on it that needs to be opened by a very specific key. So it's a big red skull that fits into a lock or a little recess on the door. And upon finding this door, say your rogue goes, "Well, can I pick the lock?" And then you say to him, "Oh no, there's no actual keyhole on the door, nothing to actually insert the lock picks into." And you explain that there's a hole shaped like a skull, and then the wizard goes, "Well, can I examine this hole for a little while and determine the shape and the nature of the thing that goes in there?" And then I use a creation spell to try and create something exactly the right shape and size to go in the hole and fits all of the different recesses, and make some good arcana and perception rolls, and spends time making this thing. And then you have to go, no, it's magic. It's not the shape of the skull. It's not any kind of mechanical device. It's just magic. And then everyone goes, "Oh, okay. I guess I guess we'll go with that." And then they'll be disappointed. I mean, you'll probably have saved the session, in that all of this work that you put in as a DM into creating a dungeon they need to go through, and all these encounters they need to do. You don't want it sequence broken by a rogue or a wizard that gets a little creative, and then you go, oh, okay, we'll do this. We'll do the big fight now, and I'm going to have to make up a load more stuff for the next 5 or 6 weeks because I was expecting this to take a whole lot longer. And you have to make these decisions, and if you don't consider enough what the players are capable of, you can end up in these binds, and you start having to use hard barriers more and more. I mean, there's not a whole lot wrong with it. You kind of have to use hard barriers to an extent. So the far reaches of this map are surrounded by a magical fog wall that they can't pass through, and they can't teleport out of, and they can't conceivably get out of. So they have to interact with this dungeon and complete it in some kind of way. They can't just leave and say it doesn't matter. I mean, you've got to have some kind of limit to it. But the more you have to fall back on hard barriers, the more you're going to clash with your players' expectations and their creativity, and sessions start to seem more like 2 6-year-olds in a playground arguing about the exact power level of their force fields that they've put around themselves. Now, something to be aware of when it comes to doors and any kind of objects in Dungeons and Dragons is everything has a stat line, and everything can theoretically be broken. I mean, there's nothing to stop someone from just going to the floor above this bedroom and just smashing through the ceiling into it. That's one way around it. So you've got to be aware that everything can be broken, and the less you allow for that, the more you're putting them up against hard barriers. There are suggestions in the Dungeon Master's Guide for stats for objects. They're not exactly comprehensive. I have created myself a little chart based on some of the suggestions in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and some of it I just kind of made up based on those suggestions. Say the armor classes of different objects are listed, or different materials. So we've got like cloth, paper and rope AC 11, crystal, glass and ice is AC 13, stone is 17, iron, steel 19, mithril is 21, adamantine 23. They also suggest that all objects have immunity to psychic and poison damage, and that some objects could have resistances or immunities to other kinds of damage. I've tried to sort of make a list of what I think fits for these things. So you can't really bludgeon cloth and steel and mithril and adamantine. You're probably not going to get very far with necrotic or cold or fire or lightning damage. They've got resistance to those. These are not like hard and fast rules. These are kind of things I've made up. There's also a list they gave of hit points for objects. It's based on their size and whether they're fragile or resilient. So they've got an average and a dice roll. I think in some cases these are a little bit low, maybe, but you find a lot of things in a lot of like mundane things in D&D, like beasts and objects have quite low HP in comparison to how much damage players can likely do. So these things are not going to last for very long. I guess it makes sense that you can break a window quite quickly. It's not likely that objects are going to last that long. So I created myself a chart of the likely DC for breaking things, for escaping from things, and for picking the lock on things. So you say manacles has got an AC of 19 because it's made of iron. It's got 15 HP because it's quite resilient, even though it's tiny or small. And that the break is reasonably high, and the chance to pick the lock is medium, and just escaping from them with dexterity is quite high as well. So these are just like typical rolls. These would be like straight strength rolls and straight dex rolls. No athletics or sleight of hand or anything involved in this. You'll find a lot of things in the book are like that, but people tend to prefer trying to use their skill things. But yeah, unless there's a specific reason to use that skill, it's best not to use it because you'll probably be making it a little bit too easy. So like a fine lock would have a DC 20 dex check to do it. So that's like a 75% chance if you've got +5. Now, something to be aware of is that rogues in particular can have expertise in thieves' tools, so for picking locks. And this makes it quite hard to stop them from unlocking things. Because, say, they've got +5 to dexterity, and they've got expertise, which is double their proficiency. If they're like +2, that's +9 in total, and they could have that at quite a low level. If they're getting up to level 9ish, they'll be like +4, so that's +8. That's +13 to a lockpick chance. So they'll probably be able to pick it on the first time, and even if they don't, if they've got enough time, they will eventually do it. So just given any old lock, they will get through it by picking the lock. So the +10 to the chance to do so is quite a big leap, but it still doesn't make it impossible for rogues. It probably will for most other people. Like, rogues are the only ones that are getting any kind of proficiency or expertise on lock picking. Everyone else is just their dexterity. So if it's a fine lock with Arcane Lock in it, that's DC 30. That is going to be virtually impossible for a normal person, even if they've got a cleric guiding them. I think it's still the maximum they can get is 29. So it does work reasonably well against them. Yeah, similarly for just the chance to break down things like the door. This door would have a fine lock, so that would be like DC 30 with the Arcane Lock. If you're trying to beat it down, it would be, say it was a metal door, DC 24. Might have said that a little high. I don't know. Say it'd be like DC 34 with the Arcane Lock on it. So that's virtually impossible to break down just normally, even with guidance and a battering ram, which can give them an extra +4. They're still. I don't think they're actually going to be able to break it down. You could set these levels a little lower, but I don't think it's that easy to just break down a door in one go. The other possibility is that they just start hacking at the thing, hacking the door down. And say a wooden door doesn't have a very high AC. Even a metal door doesn't have a very high AC. A mithril door, an adamantine door, is like 21 or 23, and even that sounds high when you're considering that a fighter's probably going to have like +9 to hit even without a magic weapon. That means they're gonna hit it quite a lot. I've given the doors quite high HP, like as the chart goes, but it's still not that high. This is like 30 HP is that's like a thug. That's something that they could get through that in one round quite easily, and it wouldn't take that much to get through a metal door really. One thing I have added though is damage threshold, which is this DT10, DT15, DT20. This means that they have to do at least that much damage to it in one hit to actually do any damage to it. So this might actually stop people from actually just knocking it down. You could set these at lower levels if you want to. This is something they did in Baldur's Gate 3 with toughness on the various doors. So this means that unless they're hitting really hard, they're not doing anything to the door really. And if you take into account that some of the things that they're hitting it with, that it'll have resistance to, it's even less likely to get through the damage threshold. So that's one way of keeping the door intact. Now you could set these a bit lower and just say like, well, eventually going to get through it. Given like enough time, they will just beat down the door. So then you've got to consider what are actually the consequences of trying to pick a lock or trying to beat down a door. What are the consequences for the players? Because if all it is just time, they are eventually going to do it. It's only one action to try and beat down a door, and they'll get 2 or 3 attacks per round, so it's just 6 seconds each time they do that. That's not very long, so you can't say, oh, they're using up their precious time. They're using their time in the day, because it's not a huge amount. So they could just keep on doing it forever until they do it. So a good consequence for trying to beat down the door is they'll make a lot of noise, and this also works for the knock spell, because that creates a loud thunderous noise within 300 feet. So you could say this is making a certain amount of noise, so they keep on doing it, or if they do it just the once, they might get some wandering monsters come in. So this mansion is guarded by various different eyeball monsters that will seek them out if they're getting up to no good and not being good guests. So the more they keep on bashing down doors, the more they come up against extra fights that they don't want to get into. With lockpicking, this isn't something that's going to happen, because lockpicking doesn't make very much noise. You could implement that there's a possible chance of catastrophic failure for lockpicking, like if they roll a 1 that they've broken a lockpick, or if they fail they break a lockpick. So the thieves' tools is like a 75 gold item. You could be really mean and say, you've broken the entire thing, and then they need to get a new one, which can be quite difficult to do in the middle of a dungeon. You could implement a system where the thieves' tool is an item, but you also need a lockpick as sort of an extra item that's disposable for actually picking locks, and that every time you fail picking the lock, you break the lockpick. So they might run out of lockpicks, or decide it's a very difficult roll, and if I screw this up again, I'm going to lose my last lockpick, and I don't want to keep on doing it, so I'll save that for an easier lock. So that could be some kind of disincentive. You could also, if someone catches you trying to pick a lock, I think that's something quite dodgy to be involved in. So you could say the consequences are more dire if they catch you doing something like that. It's harder to explain away what you're doing. But yes, having consequences for these things is good and stops it being overused. So another thing I've just recently noticed is I have been playing with the 2014 rules, and I still am. But obviously there's the 2024 Dungeons & Dragons rules that are being rolled out, and there are certain changes. Something I've noticed about the Arcane Lock spell is in the newer version, they've completely done away with the +10 thing, and they've just changed it to can't be unlocked by any non-magical means. So they have essentially changed a soft barrier into a hard barrier, which is good in some ways because it makes the spell more useful and harder to circumnavigate. And essentially what this spell is supposed to be here for is as a tool for dungeon masters to keep things locked, that they want to make it difficult to actually unlock them. I mean, you can still use the knock spell, you can still use dispel magic, but it stops people from just going, well, I can still pick my way through that, so I'm gonna. But there is the obvious downside of this, is that it is putting hard barriers in front of the player. It is like reining them in, stopping creativity, and stopping them from doing creative things. So there's advantages to one and advantages to the other. I can see why they've changed it, but in some ways it is slightly less interesting. But it's something to consider. But yes, it's something you need to be aware of when you are dungeon mastering, the difference between hard and soft barriers, and you have to be aware of what the players are capable of. And if you aren't, you are going to find yourself in surprise situations where things don't go exactly to plan because the party have got a good way to circumnavigate it. I mean, another spell to watch out for is the pass wall spell, which is a quite high level spell. It's 5th level. But that is available at level 9 for wizards, and I think druids get it as well. And this is a spell that allows you to just open up a wall and go through it. If someone's got that, they can get through your walls. And you just have to go, well, I guess you can do that now. So you have to be aware of what your party can do. So that's the end of this video. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. Please comment if you'd like me to do a bigger video running down the contents of this map, and if you'd like me to put this set of maps on Patreon as an incentive. But yeah, bye for now.